kind of looking at, all the technology you leverage, that you utilize. I know one thing, we constantly, I think, as executives, try to push towards the customer experience center being a value driver, not a cost driver. But still, a lot of executives still face the, how do I get approval for my C-suite on, leveraging a new technology or any of that? Do you have any recommendations or strategies on like how you get the buy-in from, your, executive team on some of the technologies you want to leverage or use?
Yeah. Well, one thing I would say, and it kind of references what I said before, is finding partners and vendors that, because of their newness in the space, or lower cost, is one way. So, because it's certainly true that the technology space can become very, very expensive, especially if you're entering into a space. So if you're entering into the world of chatbots, it's very hard for you to know what is your return on that, because there are so many different variables. You don't really know how much chat deflection you're going to get and how much you're going to save if you're going to go with a big company that it's all the bells and whistles from the get-go and they're going to charge you a fortune, versus partnering with a smaller vendor to tiptoe into the space and have like a lower level chatbot, like I mentioned, where it's just scouring through FAQ questions, kind of gives you the opportunity to test out that general idea. So if you can get 15% deflection just from sending people to an FAQ, then can you start ramping that up through the vendor and seeing how does deflection change? And if it doesn't change that much as you become more advanced, then maybe there isn't a great future in spending a fortune on a very, very advanced conversational chatbot, versus if you do see incrementally more substantive changes, and that's a more justification for going to the C-suite and saying, look, we've been through these various tests and we've seen substantial growth and even making small changes, and therefore it's fair to make suppositions about, if you went the more expensive route, what you'd get out of that. Mm-hmm. So doing a lot of trialing with these smaller vendors, I think, is a great way to get into that space, and so that you've done your due diligence in justifying more investments.
Yeah.
I would say the second thing generally is just needing data, because of course data is like that universal language that speaks to people, almost kind of like music. So and customer support can be tricky, because in that space you're dealing with a lot of areas where there isn't inherently good data, especially when it comes to certain intangibles, or understanding customer feelings and impressions and the quality of work that agents are putting out. So the more that you can find a way to metricize those intangibles and take them into account, the better. Such as through the QA program that we have, which is a more elaborate points-based system. But we can use that program and the score from that program in discussions with the C-suite to show increases in quality of our contacts that maybe customers wouldn't pick up on as immediately and wouldn't be as registered in satisfaction scores, where customer impressions can be very variable and can be all over the place, and not necessarily as concretely moored to a common theme of principles, versus the QA program, which does have that. So you can create data where it doesn't exist and be creative in doing that. That helps to justify things when normally you wouldn't have that data there to serve as a bulwark. And you also sometimes have to go the extra mile to get data. So in the case of some of the experiments that we did in the AI space, we were dealing with a lot of companies that didn't necessarily present all that data to us in terms of what we were getting out of the program on a silver platter. And we rarely use just the reporting system that these vendors give us, but make sure that when we go into the experience, we're asking, how can we track success on our end? So we have control over that data and we know what we're getting, and making sure that we have the information that if we want to make a case for this product, we know what we're looking for, and therefore we know what we're going to be taking to the C-suite to justify investment in that space. Those are like the two big things I would say can be a big help in terms of getting buy-in for different technology endeavors.